Thank you. Hey, good morning, everybody. So today I want to be very interactive. I'm not a huge fan of just going through slides and discussion, so I do want to have some interaction. So let me start off with a pop quiz. Somebody tell me what SIP is. I think all of us are hearing SIP. Somebody tell me what it is. Okay, so here's my engineer. Yeah, it's Session Initiation Protocol. What is it, though? Why do we use SIP?
Because H323 was too stable.
And there's my telecom person. What about security? How does security relate to SIP?
It has the ability for encryption and all the other components that are integral for the security.
Okay. Okay.
But it takes advantage of IP version 6 and this, Kerberos and all the other components that are associated with that.
Okay. Okay. So the last question: how many people personally know somebody that's been a victim of cyber fraud? How many of you personally have been? How many have gone to Target stores or Home Depot? Yeah. I was in D.C., this is a few weeks back, talking with some of the Homeland Security guys. And those same attacks that happened at those stores hit about 1,000 different brands, different stores. So I'm on my third credit card this year, from companies sending me a new credit card just because, potentially it could be breached. So we live in a different world, a world where security should be front and foremost in our minds. So we've got to keep that in mind. So as we look at unified communications, and we look at wireless, we look at all these things that we're deploying. You heard this morning with some of the speakers, everybody's using iPads and all the different devices that we bring to work now. If you're not thinking about those from a security perspective, you're going to get burned. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to spend the majority of this session. We'll talk a lot about SIP and why SIP over H323. And it does work. So we'll talk a lot about SIP. I'll give you a kind of a brief overview of what SIP is and why we're using it, so some of the value proposition of SIP. I also want to talk about security related to real-time communications, predominantly SIP. So that's really what I'm going to show today. I'm not going to go into a lot of product overview. You can come back to our booth in the back and we can share that with you. But I really just want to focus on the key things. What's going on in the environment? What do you need to do to have a secure environment? I'll talk a little bit about AVAYA's approach. Then I'll talk about audits. So those are the things that I want to get to today. So first of all, SIP. I asked, what is SIP? It said Session Initiated Protocol. That's true. It's been around for a long time. Really, all you really need to know about it, it's a protocol. It's a signaling protocol. It's how things talk together. Most people, when I ask, how are you using SIP? Everybody's SIP trunks. That's what they know about SIP. If you look at our platforms at AVAYA, the way they all communicate together, the way they talk together. If you look at our competitors, all the applications, the way they speak together today, it's through SIP. That's the language that they speak on the backside. So it's application to application. It's how we integrate our different applications. It's endpoints. So in other words, if you're using your iPhone or your Android or that device and you're using it for as a soft switch hanging off your phone system, that typically it's either H323 or SIP. And we'll talk about some of the differences there. And then obviously everybody is familiar with SIP trunking. The thing I want you to take away from this as a protocol, obviously it's a signaling path, it does the signaling. But I also want you to remember a couple of other key words. TLS, all that is, it's another word for encryption. It's transport layer security. SRTP, it's the encryption for the media. So SIP is a little bit different. There's a media path, there's a signaling path. So H323 versus SIP. This is for you. So where did H323 come from? Basically, the way to look at H323 is like taking an ISDN type of packet, ISDN signaling, and wrapping it in an IP packet. That's H323. Kind of hard, if you're trying to do custom interfaces, it's hard to work with. Where SIP came from is on the networking side, the internet side. So it's rooted in all the internet networking groups. It's very flexible, so you can use it for not only for audio, for voice calls, but you can use it for instant messaging, you can use it for video. All those real-time communications, it's very flexible from that perspective. The good news about SIP is it's easy to understand. So if you've ever seen, HTTP, so the language that you write with for a browser, that's what SIP looks like. That's what it looks like. That's how it communicates. So that's the good news. It's really easy. The bad news from a security perspective is it's really easy. So for a hacker, for me to be able to get in and figure out, okay, who's talking to who, what are they doing? I can see all that. It's all clear text. So you just need to keep that in mind. How many of you have heard of SIPing 19? Is that familiar to anybody? So this is another important concept to remember. It's virtual. I think it's a projector. The screen's still on. So, okay. So SIPing 19, while they work in the projector and the power, maybe a fuse. So what SIPing 19 is basically it's the base set of things that a SIP phone will do. So when you think about AVAYA, we have this huge feature list of things that we do. If you look at our phone, for example, there's things, multiple call appearances on your phone. Things like zip tones if you're doing contact center stuff, zip tone that comes through your, all those things, those aren't included in SIPing 19. SIPing 19 is the basic fundamental. So if I just take a generic phone, plug it into SIP, SIPing 19 is basically, it's like an analog phone. That's all it is. So from that phone, that generic phone, all I'm going to get are switch hook type of features. There's no multi-call appearances or anything like that. None of those advanced features. So that's what SIPing 19 brings to the table. And by the way, I'll after the presentation, if you want to give me your card, I'll give you this this deck so you can go through it. There's a lot of stuff I think you'll want to take home with you. So what's the value of SIP? I asked you what SIP was earlier. When I asked people, why are you buying? Why are you moving to SIP? Give me some ideas. Why go to SIP? Why would you do that?
It'd be less expensive than a PRI.
Less expensive than a PR. Have you priced it yet? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Depends on the carrier.
Get more channels.
Yeah, get more channels.
So it's less expensive than that would work.
Okay. So from a cost perspective, everybody, that's the first thing everybody says, oh, we're going to do it because it's less expensive. The reality is, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. If you're a large school system, you get great prices on PRIs, it's state funded, then, it may not, from a cost perspective, it may not be there. But what SIP brings to you are things other than cost. And let me talk about cost reduction really quick. Where you get the cost reduction is not what a PRI, cost versus 23 channels of SIP sessions. That's not where you're going to get the cost savings. Where you're going to get the cost savings is when I take multiple facilities or all the facilities that I have. You may have multiple buildings, and I've got a T1. I was talking with somebody earlier today, and they said I've got a facility that just needs like 15 channels. I don't need a full T1 ever. And so what I can do is I can take those different facilities, I can pull all that trunking together, and now I can have a larger pool that, hey, I hear power back. So I have a larger pool that I can take out to all my facilities. So that gives us the ability to lower our costs because I don't have to maintain that same busy hour for each of those locations. The other thing it allows me to do is if I want to, if I have busy seasons. So for example, if you're in retail, certain, the Christmas, the holiday seasons are where, all your money comes in. You want to beef up your contact centers in. When you buy a PRI, how long, how often do you have, how long is the contract typically? Usually buying it for a year, 3 years, right? So what I do if I'm a contact center, I may need to have the busy hour for that contact center in my PRI. So I buy it for that busy hour of the busy season. The rest of the time, I don't need it. I've got all this extra bandwidth sitting there. So from a cost perspective, using SIP, I can say I'm going to buy this much right now, and when I have my busy season, I can expand and then I can decrease. So I can go dynamically. School's in, I can have more sessions. When school's not in, I can reduce it. So
You're referring to SIP over the internet, then, which you're talking about in that perspective.
you can do it both ways. You can do it with the carrier over MPLS or over the internet. Yeah. Depends on the carrier how they do that. So that's a cost reduction. The reason that SIP is really important is not so much cost, but it gives you flexibility. If you've got a lot of different types of systems, different manufacturers, if you're doing best of breeds, it gives you the ability to interact and work, have those systems interoperate together much easier. The thing that I think is most important is risk mitigation. From a risk mitigation perspective, as a company, if the phone system goes down, all of us are familiar with disaster recovery. If the phone system goes down, okay, I've got another phone system in a spare data center that will work, right? But what do you do with the people? So disaster recovery, that's one thing. Let's look at business continuity. What do you do with the people? If they can't get to the contact center, if they can't get into the area where they're working, but that's a critical time. If it's a storm that comes through, and whatever the event is, how do you get those people to work? Well, with SIP, I can work in my office, I can work wherever I'm at. But the thing you want to keep in mind is, okay, do I have to, how many has a huge IT staff that has plenty of time that you don't mind doing stuff? None of us do that. So we don't have the bandwidth. So what we do is you've got to have things that are automated. So, from a business continuity perspective, I need to be able to take my laptop, I need to take my phone or my iPad or whatever the device I have and go wherever I'm at, whether it's home, whether it's another location, and be able to work and not worry about the security. Let me give you an example. Up and down the coast, you deal with hurricanes, right? Or storms. In Japan, we had a large customer. It's actually a financial institution, a bank. And when the tsunami hit a couple years ago, they told their executives in Tokyo, pick up your PCs, pick up your phones. You wouldn't have to do it this way, but they told them, pick up your PCs, pick up your phones. We're moving you to Osaka, and you're going to work from a remote location. It's public space, and everybody that was in that space, it was like me plugging to my private internet at home. So the cool thing is they plugged it in, and it worked. Totally public internet, though. So the problem is, being a financial organization in Japan, if you think our regulatory compliance issues here are strong, it's an order of magnitude worse in Japan. So for them to be able to plug their phone in, the cool thing is, picked it up, it worked, dial tone came up, dial tone comes from God, right? So they picked the phone up and it worked. So now I put my security hat on and I'm like, wow, what just happened? How can I plug this phone in and it finds its way back and it works? Do any of you have a problem with that? What if somebody stole a phone and plugged it in? How do you know if it's the right phone that's allowed on? How do you know if it's the right soft client? How do you know it's the right person? So you got to be checking all those things. And so that's one of the things that we do. Is the projector back on?
It's cool.
It's
kind of cool.
It's taking its time. So risk mitigation is extremely important. So let me talk about some areas of vulnerability. I've got a really good slide for this, so you want to see it later. Where are we vulnerable in our communication systems? Where do we become vulnerable? So it used to be, and I'm going to show my age, it used to be when I first started this with system, even before the System 75s, if you think of the AT&T world, dimensions, way back then, you plugged your phone into a phone jack, right? That's not the case anymore. What kind of jack do you plug your phone in today? A data jack. It goes into the network. Things have changed. Things have changed significantly. So any device that we connect to now is basically, it's a PC. It's a network device. So that means anytime my phone system, my IP phone system sitting in the middle, any of those applications, video, whatever the application is, they're all writing on the internet, which means anytime I cross a boundary, I have a point of vulnerability. When you get on your phone, you think, okay, nobody from that phone can get access to my server. So let me give you an example. We've got a group within AVAYA. Hey, there we go. We've got a group within AVAYA. It actually came through an acquisition where I came from a company called Sapira. That's called Viper Labs. And what these guys do is penetration testing. They do security research. And so we went out to a casino in Vegas. They had a security consultant in. They brought all their vendors in, network, application. They brought all the vendors in, had everybody lock everything down as much as they could. And then what happened is they brought us in as a penetration tester for real-time communications and said, okay, you're in the hotel, go to, from a hotel room, see what you can get access to. So from a SIP phone, a plain, simple SIP phone sitting in the room, we were able to, in less than a day and a half, log into the network, get access to the network, get access to a server farm, not on the voice VLAN, which is where the phone was, jump across, do a VLAN hop, jump across another network, found where they were building the servers, and were able to put a backdoor in a server that was being commissioned. That server was going to run the financial application. So we had backdoor root access in a Linux box. Now, could we get to the application, the database, and probably not real time, but we could have downloaded it and hacked it offline. So we had everything that we need in a matter of a day to be able to get access. And it's not just the voice stuff. We had everything. We had the keys to the kingdom at that point. So when I'm sitting up here and I think, okay, it's just voice over IP, it's just SIP, it's just H323, you got to start thinking, every point of access is someplace I can get to. How many people have remote locations, do outsourced contact centers? It's another, you got to think about that. When I connect the core of my network to another location, it's called federation. You need to make sure that that is tightly locked down. All right, I'm going to show this real time. This has Cisco written all over it. So I'll show you this example, but then I'm going to tell a story about AVAYA too, so you don't think I'm just picking on Cisco. So what I'm going to do, actually let me go back to that slide real quick. So what I'm going to do, where this came from is from a book called, down here at the bottom, Hacking Exposed VoIP. If you want to know anything about security, this is kind of essential reading. So this is where you want to go to. So this is verbatim out of the book, so I'm not saying one's better than the other. Now, I'll talk about it in a minute. This is not a Cisco issue. I just want to make it really clear. It's not a Cisco issue, not a Cisco problem. This is how SIP works. So this is why I wanted to start out with the VIO SIP first, because now I'm going to show you how to break it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to Google, and I'm just going to type that phrase in. I just did a cut and paste. Okay, so now within, how long did this take me? I go to the one I haven't clicked on yet. What is this? What am I looking at?
Web interface on a VoIP.
What can I get from this?
All their configuration.
Who is this, by the way? Look at the domain in this one. This is actually, I just picked this at random. This is kind of funny.
It's at Cisco.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a story about us in just a second after I show you this. So if you know anything about Cisco, I've got the TFTP server address. So here's TFTP server. I know the host name, so I can take that host name, do a get file. You go to TFTP server, do a get file. Hostname.cnf. Now I can pull down the configuration file. Clear text? Yep. So what's in that configuration file? Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Kind of the keys of the kingdom. Let's go down a little bit further. What else is on here? Here's the IP address. so I know their server names. How easy is it for me to go hack this now? I've got the keys to the kingdom already. How long did that take me? Yeah. So just so you know, this is not a Cisco problem. This is the way it works. The reason I talked about encryption at the beginning, you should never see this screen, ever, from the internet. What this is probably somebody turned up a phone system in a lab, is my guess. So it's a live system in a lab somewhere. That's how easy it is to get to it. So if you're deploying real-time communications, whether it's H323, whether it's SIP, you have to do security. I should never see this. So I told you I'd tell you a story about AVAYA as well. So shortly after the acquisition of Nortel, this is a few years back, after the acquisition of Nortel, up in Canada, we did a large kind of a show and tell. You know, we brought the government of Canada in to do an executive briefing. So in setting that up, prior to that, we, you know, in the lab, we set up SIP trunks. You know, the team up there set up SIP trunks, and you know, so it was part of what they were going to show, you know, the government in Canada. So that Friday, Bell Canada shut our trunks down, and so they're saying, oh, you know, you've got lots of phone calls going to places that you probably don't want them to go. So they shut the trunk down. And so one of our executives go back, no, you don't understand, we've got an important meeting on Monday, it's got to be up working, we're testing it this weekend. Over the period of a week, while that SIP trunk was back up, we ran up $250,000 in toll charges. One SIP trunk. So, you know, I'm showing you Cisco, it's AVAYA. Everybody, you know, you turn something up in a lab, like the example I was just showing you with Cisco, I'm sure that's sitting in a lab somewhere. If you're not managing those networks and managing everything in and out of your environment, you're going to get hacked. By the way, Target stores, what happened to them after they were attacked? How much did their stock drop? How much did their revenue drop? Any ideas? The revenue dropped by over 50%. Stock dropped, I mean, it just went off a cliff. That's what happens when you get attacked, especially if you don't handle it right. Okay, so I'm not going to read through all these. The point is that there's a lot of nasty things going on in the market today. Whether you're a small business, whether you're a really large office, there's a lot of nasty things. It's kind of funny, I was in the plane when I flew down this week. I was sitting next to a veterinarian, and she asked me what I was doing. I said, oh, I'm going to go speak at a conference about, you know, some security stuff. And so we talked a bit about it, and she's like, oh, you know, this is really interesting. I just got hit with toll fraud. Very small veterinarian office, got hit with a huge bill with toll fraud. So how does that happen? You know, how does somebody break in? Do you know how much the business value of toll fraud attacks are just by voicemail attacks? You know how much that cost us today? Somebody take a guess. What's the impact of toll fraud just on voicemail? Not voice over IP, just voicemail hacking.
It costs the businesses everything they got because of nationality. Depends on
Yeah.
how long it's been out there.
Yeah. So globally, right now, it's a $4.5 billion problem for us. Who's paying for that? You think the phone companies pay for that when you get hit with toll fraud? They're not. Sometimes they do, but most of the time they're not. So it's us, you know, the example that I gave you with Canada. AVAYA paid that. That was our bill. We paid it. You know, think of a small organization, you know, hand to mouth, you know, you don't have the amount of money that you can spend $50,000 on toll fraud charges. So this is a big, big issue. Let me kind of stop here. Does anybody know how an attack actually happens? Let's say a voicemail attack. Do you know how that happens? Any thoughts? I mean, it happens every day.
They get somebody's password, and they go into the voicemail, and then they go out and start the phone.
How do they get the password?
There's any number of ways.
Yeah.
Using phishing or
Yeah. Yeah, so
They're not using
Yeah. So this is kind of the way it works. So let me talk about footprinting. So footprinting is what I just showed you, the Google hacking stuff. That's part of footprinting. Another way they're going to do it is there's a thing called a call walk. So it's not a sales guy at the end of the quarter trying to hit his numbers calling you over and over. But call walking is dialing every single phone number in your DID range. Have you ever picked the phone up and heard dead air? Yeah, just dead air. You're, hello, this is Chuck, IT security, can I help you? Oftentimes what that is a war dialer. It's just somebody calling through. It's a call walking attack. It's a reconnaissance attack. And what they're doing is they're saying, okay, does somebody answer this phone? They're recording that. It's not somebody doing it manually. It's automatic. So it's going through, it's just recording everything. And it's looking to see, okay, is there a phone here on this DID? Is there not a phone? Is it somebody of interest that I might be wanting to call? So if, for example, I was in IT security and I answered that way, somebody could say, okay, this is the number I want to hack, so I'm going to attack that phone. And so it gives me the ability then to impersonate that person, so then I can go further. So if I know the person's number and I call somebody, it looks like I'm calling from that number internally, you're probably going to give me more information than if you're calling me outside of the organization. So it gives you a way to do social hacking. There's a lot of things around that. Think about your job ads, by the way. I was at an intelligence agency. This is a year and a half ago. And so I've got a top secret clearance, and when I was talking to these guys, I was in this meeting that was actually about the same size as this group. And I asked them what certain systems they were using. And they're like, that's top secret, it's need to know. I'm like, well, what if I told you? And they're like, it's top secret. And I'm like, okay, you got this, you got this, you got this. And it was kind of one of those moments where the faces kind of went white. And they're like, how do you know that? I'm like, I looked at your one ads. You said you've got, I see where you've got AVAYA, you've got Juniper, you've got this. I know what your firewalls are. And it was just like, oh. So it was that moment of, this is how easy it is, for people to get information about me. By the way, a lot of the DOS attacks that happen are people trying to break into your system. They can't figure out how to break in, so they just get kind of ticked off and like, okay, you're not going to be able to get to it either. Here's an eye chart for you. There's going to be a test at the end. I'm not going to go through this. I'll talk about a few of these as I go. This is in the deck. It's for your information, but this is good stuff. These are the types of attacks that we're seeing in the real world. How many people use MPLS? Most of us. When you use SIP trunks, I guarantee your carrier is most likely going to drop stuff off in MPLS. I will tell you now, treat it like it's the internet. Absolutely treat MPLS like it's the internet. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. There's a lot of stuff that's out there that talks about that. This slide is not to say where is AVAYA in the whole mix of SBCs. The point about this slide is, and this is a survey, there's a survey for 2014 that's out now. I need to update this. But it's similar. The thing that's really alarming about this slide is the people that are using SIP trunking are putting it in without using a session border controller. Does everybody know what a session border controller is? Is that a new term? It's basically that point of demarcation between your network and the carrier's network. Most carriers are going to say, oh, we've got a session border controller on our side. You don't have to worry about it. I hear that every time I talk to customers. And you're more secure if it's MPLS, but why do they have a session border controller? They don't want you getting back in their network. So the chances of something coming across their network back to you, it can happen. Again, our Viper guys, we do test all the time, and you can bring a trunk down just like that if you know what you're doing and get into the core of your network. So not using an SBC when you're using SIP is like plugging your home internet directly to your service provider without having a router or anything. It's like plugging your corporate network back into your ISP. You would never do that. You're going to put a firewall in place. You're going to protect yourself. You've got to be doing the same thing. Every presentation I've heard this morning has talked about these same things. The market's changing. We're not at our desk anymore all the time typing on a PC. We're mobile. We're moving around. Education's changing. Every environment that we're in, we're moving out. People are working from home. Their disaster recovery is driving. How many tablets are going to be given away today at this show? I've seen one already. Everybody's moving to tablets. So So that's what's changing in the environment, and that's what's really changing our security profile that's there. So now have I scared you? Enlightened you? Enlightened? Yeah. So now let me talk about what a real situation looks like. How do you fix it? How do you use SIP? There's so much value in using SIP, but you've got to make sure that you look at it from a perspective of security. Anytime you're looking at unified communications, contact centers, all those things, real-time communication, video, you've got to be thinking from a perspective of security. Security is not saying, okay, I've got a box, I'm going to stick it in, and now it works. That's not security. Security is a cycle. It's a process of analyzing where you're at today, what your posture needs to look like, implementation, education, testing it. How many people actually go out and test your firewall to see if you can get through it? You should be. Yeah, you should be. So I'll talk about, again, I mentioned Viper. I'll talk about them again at the end. But your security is only as good as the last person that touched it. We did another penetration test with a large financial institution up in New York. And one of the things that we found was, within the first few minutes, we did the same thing, kind of the stuff I was showing you, did a port scan to see what ports are open. And within a few minutes, and this organization had an entire staff of security people. Within the first few minutes, we found a hole. In this case, it was an F5 load balancer. Wasn't designed, it's not an F5 problem, but we were able to, from the outside in our office in Dallas to their office, their point of presence in New York, go all the way to the core of their network within a matter of minutes. Never stopped. Why is that? Somebody had been troubleshooting, somebody did something that was configured wrong, something happened somewhere along the line. They thought it was locked down, it was not. That's the importance of testing. You've got to do it. Real-time communications is a different skill. It's not like taking an appliance, and again, it's not an appliance you put it in and it goes out and looks at all my security patches and sees the latest releases. It's taking somebody that's an ethical hacker, a white hat type of hacker, and saying, okay, get on site and see what you can do. Or do it remotely, see what you can get to. They don't think like you and I do. How many of you go home and try to hack a system? Okay. Now, after I showed you that thing with the Cisco, how many of you are going to go home and try that? Okay, you guys are hackers. So security is a cycle. It's not, I'm going to take a box and put it in. If you've got that mentality, you're going to be attacked because you're going to end up having holes in it and you're not going to realize it, and you will be attacked. So this slide, I'm going to tell you VoIP security is different. On the next slide or slide coming up, I'm going to tell you VoIP security should be the same. So which is it? It's different for a lot of reasons. First of all, voice over IP is real time. It's got to be real time. So if I have any delay in the signaling, any delay in the media, you're going to hear jitter, you're going to hear problems, you're going to have one-way audio, things are going to happen. You can't have any of those delays, so it's got to be real time. The other thing on this slide, things happen at different layers. There's firewalls, there's intrusion protection. You've got to address all these things. And all of them, you need to be thinking of it from a perspective of real-time communication. That's the key. Okay, so of all the slides I show you, this is one of the ones I want you to remember the most. Again, here's the slide I was just showing you. Here's a cycle. In this cycle, though, when you define your security, you've got to be thinking of these 4 things, actually these 5 things right here. First of all, if you're a security person, you think layered. Why is that? You want to have a layered approach. Why do you think that is? Any thoughts?
Just to give a chance for you to at least prevent somebody from doing hiring as they go along. If they get past one stage of it, it makes it possible for you to block it at the next stage.
Yeah.
Keep them out.
Yeah.
Security precaution.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard that. So if I get past one road bump or speed bump, there's another one. So in the case that I was telling you about with the financial firm, there was only one hurdle. And I got across that hurdle I had the keys to the kingdom. I could do anything I wanted to and go anywhere I wanted to once I was in. I came in as a SIP packet, but that doesn't mean once I'm in that I can't do whatever I want to do. You can do VLAN hops. It just thinks I'm another IP device, right? So you need a layered approach. That's critical. That's the first thing. Firewall. Your proxy server goes behind the firewall. Often people have an internal firewall and multiple firewalls behind that, depending on how complex they are. The next thing that's important is access control. Who can have access? What devices can have access? What individuals can have access? You've got to be controlling that, and you've got to have access control that's set up all through. So the only device my session border controller sitting in the DMZ can talk to are the two ends of the firewall, the internal and the external firewall. Set up those access control lists. What individuals can get in? What devices? You want to layer those, and you can manage that by individual. You can manage that by domain. There's a lot of ways you can manage that. Policy enforcement. So, I mean, the policies are all over the place, but what I'm talking about here are security policies. So as a policy, I might set up a policy that says only people that are using an iPad or an iPhone, an iOS device that has encryption turned on, so they're using SRTP and TLS, that's the only type of device I'm going to allow to register. If it's anything else, you can't register. That's a policy. So that may be the type of policy you set up. You may have it looser than that. It really depends on your organization. Privacy, I've talked about encryption all through this. If you don't do anything else in your network, turn encryption on. How many have credit card information that you're taking as part of your business? Some of you? Personal, confidential, PCI, HIPAA, all those things are critical. If I'm not using encryption, externally and internally, that becomes a compliance issue. What about threat protection? What is threat protection, first of all?
Actors, second threat, your internal individuals, and protection against anything coming across your threshold.
Yeah. So like virus protection, intrusion protection, everybody's heard of an IPS, right? So an intrusion protection system, what that's doing is it's looking at what's coming through and saying, okay, is that a problem? Is that not a problem? And figuring out, identifying, what's the challenge? That's threat protection. You've got to have threat protection. So calls coming through. I talked about call walking. If I were to pick up a phone and dial each of you individually, you probably wouldn't necessarily think that's a threat, would you? But kind of fundamentally, if you know I called every single DID in your organization, would you kind of think that's suspicious? That's threat protection. It's being able to understand and analyze and figure out, okay, I'm watching this individual call, I'm watching all the packets to see if there's anything on the signaling on the media. I'm watching all the calls that are coming in. So I'm looking at things from a very minute, high-level perspective, and I'm looking at things from a global perspective. That's what we get from that's what threat protection does for you. So the fundamentals. What can we do? So here's some of the very basics. This is like adding 1 + 1, right? So passwords. You got to change passwords. How long does it take to hack a four-digit password?
It's easy.
Seconds? No time. How many people have the same password as your extension? It's a huge problem. So the programs that are out there, what happens? The reason I showed you how an attack happens is because I wanted to come back and talk about this. One of the differences between using PRI standard trunking and SIP trunking is with SIP, I get a lot more tools in my bag. One of those tools is things like, when I see somebody doing a call walk or a DOS attacking, any of those type of attacks. A DOS attack can happen on analog lines, it can happen in PRIs, it can happen on SIP. It doesn't matter, it can happen in any of them. But if I have the tools to mitigate those, I can better do that with SIP. I can completely kind of shut down and mitigate a DOS attack. You can't do that on a PRI. If it's just a regular PRI circuit, I can completely bring down your contact center. With social media, one of the things I see happening is somebody gets mad at an organization, local government, emergency center. All they do is famous person, hey, everybody call this, this group at this time. You're done. You're completely done. Did you know you can actually go out and hire DOS attacks and pay, I think it's like $20 an hour or something like that? It's out there. It's easy to do, and it's cheap. So from a fundamental perspective, actually, let me go back to where I was at. So coming in, attacking, the first step of an attack is, a person's going to do, they're going to call in, they're going to look to see, how do I get in? And, so they're going to call all those things. So you've got to be looking for that. The next phase of that is, okay, this is the phone that I want to get on. So now I'm going to start doing an attack. I'm going to bombard that number. I'm just going to keep cycling different phone numbers. That's how they're cracking passwords. Usually it doesn't take long. So if you've got a 4-digit password, if you've got a password that's the same as your phone, you're going to be hacked literally in a matter of seconds. You need to have longer passwords. You need to enforce passwords. You need to change passwords. You need to change your management passwords. So on your servers, admin is the root login or the management login. And you still have admin as the manager's as the password. You got to change those passwords. If you don't use them, disable them. If you've got phones that are out there that are not used, that still have voicemail, disable them. Kill those. You may not even ever know it's being used, and somebody's, it could be their way in. International calling. If you're not using it, shut it down. Shut it down within your phone. Shut it down. Go call your carrier and say, no international calls. Or limited. It's easy to do. The biggest thing with voicemail, the way they're hacked, people call in, they're doing a voice, they're just doing a call transfer back out. So it's in and back out. And then what they're doing is calling 900 numbers, premium service numbers. You're going to have to pay for those. It's the phone company, if it's just true long distance, oftentimes they'll eat that charge. But if it's calling 900 numbers, premium service numbers, just short calls, dial, connect, hang up, dial, connect, hang up, you can run up tens of thousands of dollars literally in a matter of hours. It's that fast. So don't allow those transfers out of your voicemail system out to the outside lines. How many people have auto registration turned on in your phone systems? This is a feature of our system's IP Office. It's designed to be easy to use and easy to set up. You turn on auto registration. If you don't turn that off after you configured your system, that means me from the internet can say, oh, I've got a soft client. I'm going to go auto register to that system. How hard is it to figure out an IP address of somebody's system? If you're not security conscious, it's pretty easy. So I'm just going to point at that phone system, do auto registration. Now I'm on your system. I'm logged in. It's that easy. So turn off any type of auto registration type of functionality. How many of you have heard me say use encryption? Use encryption. Not just externally. You have to do it externally. Internally, I would recommend it as well. So when you start thinking, okay, I've turned encryption internally, is that a problem? Does it make it harder to troubleshoot? It does. But did you know how easy it is for me to get access to any phone in your environment? Next time you walk into one of your offices, turn the phone over and look to see if you see the IP address, the MAC address. What you've done by doing that is I can unplug that, or I can plug into the back of your phone, your IP phone. I can spoof that phone. Now I can download anything that I want. I can download your database of all the names and the numbers, or whatever is in your directory. I can download that. I can record those calls, do man-in-the-middle attacks, and actually record and listen to those calls or the video calls, just like that in a matter of seconds. If I turn encryption on, I can't do that as easily. It takes a lot more work, and somebody's not going to do it. Hide all the information that doesn't need to be in the public. So that means IP addresses. You need to be natting. You need to be masking all those. As I said earlier, one ads, those kind of things. People don't need to get information. They don't need that. When you bring them into the interview, then talk about it. But don't make that information public. You need to hide that stuff.
So just a question. if all these features are built into the, and it's irrelevant if it's AVAYA, Nortel, Cisco, if all these features are built into these phone systems, and by default, all the vulnerabilities are turned on instead of hardened by default, why would you produce a product that way? Why not make it difficult on the initial installation and then force you to do something to turn on a vulnerability instead of the other way around? Why would you put it out in the market that way?
That's a great question. Vulnerabilities really depend on the location you're selling into. There's a lot that are region specific. Auto registration is not one of those. In our system, it is a default to ship turned off. So that is the mindset typically. But when you go out and install it, how often is it AVAYA installing? Occasionally it is, oftentimes it is, but more often than not, it's one of our partners installing it. So we do those features are there to make it easy for them and for you, but you've got to be aware of them. So, what we would look as a vulnerability in one area is not a vulnerability in another area. So it really just depends. So if you go into, let me give you an example. So I said turn off international dialing, or turn off where I can make calls in and go out. So in the United States, that makes sense. But if you go to Europe, where somebody 5 miles from me is an entire different country, I still want to be able to make those international calls. So in their environment, having that on as a default is more important. That's the way it's deployed most times. So it depends on the location. The point you make is very valid, though.
That's a simple fix. If you deploy a system, and question number one to the wizard when you're loading it is, are you going to use a North American dialing plan? Boom. Now, if you're using dialing peers or ARS tables or NARS and bars, whatever it is, have all the country codes go into a fictitious trunk.
Right.
Why put the vulnerability in place if you can tell that you're using a North American dialing?
So the point you're making is very valid. From the AVAYA perspective, we try to do that. Other manufacturers may or may not be the case. I don't know. I don't work for them. But I do know, being in the security side of AVAYA, those points are driven home. So that is the case. We try to look at the overall market where we sell, and the features that make sense, that are vulnerabilities, default, those should be turned off typically. So where do we fit in? And let me look at time. So I'm going to speed up a little bit. So where AVAYA fits in, where what we do that's different, we sit, like I said, we sit in the DMZ. And actually, I'm going to jump to the next slide. One more. Okay, there we go. So where do we fit into the environment? We fit in the DMZ. What we look like is a proxy. So, Barracuda's here. If you've ever been in an airport, you've seen signs for Barracuda. They're a proxy. They're an email proxy. And so, they sit in the firewall, in the DMZ, as a proxy. They look at every packet coming through. They do deep packet inspection. But they understand what viruses and what threats look like in that environment for email. We have web application proxies that do the same thing. What we do is we sit in the middle, just like a proxy. So if you look at some of our competitors, they bundle everything as one device. And again, you kind of break the rules of security. Another one of our larger competitors, well, I'll tell you who it is, it's Acme. Acme and Sonos and some of the other big guys that kind of grew up in this space. They came out of the telecom world, so they'll sit outside of the firewall. So when I said, on one hand, VoIP is different, security for VoIP is different, it's also the same. I don't want to treat it separately and create new connections out to the internet and out to my carrier that goes around all my known security practices. So everybody asked, well, do you have to sit within the DMZ? No, we can sit we can sit parallel to it. We prefer to sit there because of our layered security approach. That's why we want to sit there. How many of you have, I think I asked this earlier, how many are you doing outsourcing and connected facilities beyond your walls? Some of you? I do a lot of work internationally, and we have companies that have offices in China, in Ukraine, and Eastern Europe, all those places that the government thinks it's part of their intellect, part of their value to their country is stealing that intellectual property. So one of the things you've got to be able to do if you're in those environments, or if you're just doing outsourcing, again, I said you've got to protect every point. And so one of the things that AVAYA does that nobody else really does, we're unique. We can put session border controllers or security devices at those remote sites. So a person sitting here can't jump on the network and hack somebody sitting over here on this side. We're protecting all the way around. Session border controllers, from a SIP trunking perspective, if you've looked at them in the past, you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're so expensive. That's not the case today. The prices have come down tremendously. You can do it virtual, actually. So we can do this very easily, but we can create an environment where it's ultra secure. This is what a number of our intelligence agencies are using. It looks just like this. BYOD, we've all talked about it. We've all got to address it. AVAYA, what we bring to the table is the ability to have a set of rules inside. So if I'm inside, I may want to have, if it's my, my company device, I may have different rules for it than if it's somebody's personal device. If I leave the environment, I may say, okay, you can't do video. So you've got to you've got to be able to control all those devices. I think I'm going to end on this slide. I think my time is about up. Remote worker or mobile workers are people that are using devices outside of the organization typically. What we do is a thing called VPN-less. I prefer to call it application-specific VPN. So if you use our soft clients, and you can come over and see them, if you're using our soft clients, when I log into that device, I don't have to log into a VPN first of all, and then log into the IPPBX. With our soft client, all I do is, I take my device out, I load the app up, it logs me in, it checks to see, is this the right device? Are you the right person? And then I get on. It helps user adoption. I don't have to go through, for me, I travel a lot, so I'm in a coffee shop. VPN goes down, the power went off, whatever happened, right? And now I've got to log back into the VPN, I've got to do all that again. User adoption is horrible with VPN from that perspective, with voice and video. So you don't want to have to do that. So what we do is a thing called VPN-less endpoints. So I think I'm out of time. Is there any questions? Has this been enlightening? I kind of tried to stay away from product pitch. I just wanted to do more education. If you have questions, I'll be around. I'll be over in and around our booth.